Hello, and let's go on a bit of a philosophical journey and see why I believe that souls might actually exist. Now let's firstly lay some ground rules of the universe in which we exist in. If we look at the laws of thermodynamics, energy never disappears, it simply changes from where it is. The same way it seems that atoms and electrons never disappear, they simply change what they're used for. So chair as a concept that we apply to a certain piece of wood can disappear because we can make it into a table instead of a chair, but the actual atoms which the chair is made of never disappeared, they simply changed what they were used for. And so we have this rule of the universe that nothing actually disappears. There is no truly going away, there is simply changing what something is used for, but nothing can ever disappear. And when you keep that in mind, you must ask the question, what about our consciousness? I mean, surely our bodies decay away and the atoms and electrons used for our bodies will get used for the ground then. But what about our consciousness? Surely if nothing can disappear, our consciousness must live on, but it cannot live on inside our body because our bodies, atoms and electrons get used for other things. So there must be something which clings on to our consciousness and which keeps it going because nothing can disappear. And wouldn't that thing be a soul? Something that even after this body fails keeps our consciousness alive in an afterlife, in a sense? Wouldn't that exactly be a soul? Now you might be saying, well, why should we treat consciousness as an entity of its own? And the reason is quite simple. I mean, if we look at rocks are made of identical atoms and electrons, quarks if you want to go very deep, as we are. The identical particles, electrons, protons, neutrons, all identical to the ones that we are made out of. Yet it doesn't seem like rocks have a consciousness. So consciousness is not some thing that just comes out of atoms. It seems to be a separate thing because otherwise all things made of atoms would have a consciousness, right? If this was this general rule of the universe that all things made of atoms have a consciousness, yet most people probably wouldn't claim that rocks have a consciousness. So surely it must be a separate entity, a separate object. But now you might be saying, well, no. It is simply the atoms and electrons in these certain positions that they are in our brain that make up this greater, bigger idea. That could be a possibility. But let's just apply Occam's razor to this. If we take the assumption that there is the immaterial, for example a soul, we have to make only a single ontological commitment, which is that immaterial things exist, like our thoughts. And that would be enough to then logically follow that there's probably a soul. But to make the case that our consciousness is not of the soul, but it is some material thing simply in our brain, that would require at least two ontological commitments. First, it would require that we can trust our senses enough to actually make sure that material things exist, because this all could be something that our brain made up, and we have to make the ontological commitment that we can trust our eyes and our touch and so on to know that material things exist. And then the second ontological commitment you have to make is that out of these material things you can get something that seems immaterial, that is so much bigger and more complex than simply atoms and electrons. Something that you cannot explain with gravity or the nuclear forces. It's so complex, and that could come out of simply material things, and that could be simply material. And also, if you make that claim, you would also have to make the claim that free will does not exist. Because then we would be simply limited by the laws of nature, and they would deterministically determine what we do, because then everything would be simply material and follow the laws of nature and physics. So you need to make at least 2 ontological commitments for the material case, but only 1 for the immaterial case. And so, according to Occam's razor, it seems more likely that there is the immaterial, that there is a soul. And so when it comes to it, it seems very probable that an immaterial soul exists, which keeps our consciousness alive, because once again, nothing can truly disappear. And if nothing can truly disappear, then our consciousness cannot disappear if it is an entity of its own, which it seems to be. Of course, there is a slight possibility that it is not, and it is simply the construct of our brains that make us think that this thing exists, but that doesn't seem likely, at least according to Occam's razor. But hey, I'll let you be the judge. Do you think we have souls? Is this something to think about? Am I onto something, or is this simply humbo jumbo? Anyway, thanks for watching, and have a great day.